Long before Rowan Atkinson became a global symbol of laughter, his life unfolded quietly on a farm in County Durham, shaped by routine, responsibility, and unspoken emotion. Born on January 6, 1955, he was the youngest of four sons in a household that valued discipline, education, and emotional restraint. A tragedy early in the family's history, the loss of one brother in infancy, left a subtle but lasting imprint on the home, reinforcing a culture where feelings were felt deeply but rarely discussed. From the outside, Rowan's upbringing appeared stable and orderly, yet inwardly he was navigating a growing sense of difference. He was observant, thoughtful, and imaginative, but also acutely aware that he did not quite fit in. Those early years taught him self-control and resilience, qualities that would later become both his greatest strengths and his quiet burdens. Finding his voice through silence. At a young age, Rowan developed a pronounced stutter that made everyday communication stressful and exhausting. Simple classroom moments, reading aloud, answering questions, introducing himself, became sources of anxiety. He grew cautious with words, often choosing silence over the risk of being misunderstood. While children can be unintentionally unkind, the attention his speech drew made him feel isolated and hyper-aware of himself. Yet something remarkable happened when he performed. On stage, inhabiting a role, the stutter softened or vanished entirely. Acting created distance between Rowan and his fear, allowing him to communicate without self-consciousness. Performance was not about attention for him, it was relief. In those moments, he discovered that expression did not always require fluency. This realization planted a powerful idea, that communication could exist beyond words, and that silence itself could carry meaning, humor, and connection. Discipline, study, and unspoken expectations. Despite social challenges, Rowan thrived academically. His aptitude for mathematics and science led him to study electrical and electronic engineering at Newcastle University, where he graduated with strong results. To teachers and peers, his future seemed clear and sensible: research, industry, stability. Comedy was not an obvious or encouraged path, particularly for someone reserved and cautious with speech. Rowan himself initially followed these expectations, continuing his studies at Oxford while pursuing advanced academic work. Yet beneath the structured world of equations and laboratories, creativity persisted. He joined student performance groups, discovering an environment where intellect and imagination coexisted. Oxford provided something he had rarely experienced before, a space where his quiet nature was not a limitation and where originality was valued. It was there that his dual identity as both engineer and performer began to merge into something uniquely his own, shaping a new kind of comedy. While many comedians relied on fast dialogue and verbal wit, Rowan instinctively gravitated toward physical comedy. Influenced by classic performers who mastered timing, movement, and expression, he explored humor rooted in precision rather than volume. Every gesture, pause, and facial shift was carefully considered. This approach was not avoidance, but intention. Physical comedy allowed him to express complex emotions without confronting the vulnerabilities of speech. It transformed what once felt like a limitation into a creative advantage. Audiences responded not because he spoke loudly, but because he communicated clearly. His comedy felt universal, crossing language and cultural barriers with ease. In learning to trust silence, Rowan discovered a form of expression that was deeply controlled, disciplined, and powerful. It was comedy built not on excess, but on restraint, a reflection of the very qualities shaped by his early life experiences: persistence in the face of uncertainty. Early recognition did not arrive smoothly. Performances at festivals and student reviews earned mixed reactions, and after completing his academic work, Rowan faced repeated professional uncertainty. Television executives struggled to categorize his style, unsure how to market a performer who defied convention. Auditions were demanding, often reawakening old anxieties, and rejection became a familiar companion. At times, he considered stepping away from performance entirely. What sustained him was collaboration and belief, working with peers who understood his vision and encouraged experimentation. Slowly, opportunities emerged, including radio work that allowed him to explore multiple characters and refine his craft without visual pressure. These years were defined less by success than by persistence. Rowan learned that progress did not always look like momentum. Sometimes it meant simply continuing, refining, and trusting that originality, though slow to be accepted, had lasting value. Breakthroughs that almost slipped away. When Rowan finally found mainstream exposure through sketch comedy, the response was not immediately enthusiastic. Early reviews were harsh, and viewership was uncertain. Yet a rare vote of confidence from decision-makers allowed the project to continue. Gradually, audiences caught up, recognizing the intelligence and daring behind the performances. Rowan's work stood out not because it sought approval, but because it challenged expectations. As his reputation grew, so did the demands he placed on himself. Known for perfectionism, he devoted immense energy to detail, often at personal cost. Comedy, for him, was not carefree improvisation, but careful construction. While success brought recognition, it also intensified internal pressure. He was admired for his confidence, yet privately remained self-critical, navigating the tension between external praise and internal doubt with characteristic restraint. Reinvention and emotional depth. Rather than settling into a single formula, Rowan repeatedly chose reinvention. A historical sitcom offered a new rhythm and required him to adapt his timing and tone. Initial setbacks led to thoughtful revision rather than abandonment, resulting in a refined series that balanced wit with structure. One of its most memorable moments departed from comedy entirely, delivering a quiet, emotional conclusion that resonated deeply with audiences. For Rowan, this project marked a shift. It proved that humor could coexist with seriousness, and that laughter did not need to avoid truth. The experience was collaborative and supportive, allowing him to work without the isolation that had accompanied earlier success. It reaffirmed that growth did not require reinvention of identity, only expansion of range and willingness to explore vulnerability within discipline. A global icon built on restraint, the character that ultimately defined Rowan's global image relied almost entirely on silence, expression, and physical timing. Its universal appeal transcended language, making it accessible across cultures and generations. Ironically, this near-silent figure echoed the very challenges Rowan had navigated since childhood. The success was overwhelming, bringing worldwide recognition and physical demands that tested his endurance. Each performance required intense control and energy, often leaving him exhausted. While grateful, Rowan was candid about the toll it took. Over time, he sought ways to continue creatively without sacrificing well-being, choosing selective appearances and adaptations that reduced strain. This balance reflected a deeper shift, an acceptance that sustainability mattered more than constant visibility, and that stepping back was not failure, but self-respect. A life defined by adaptation, not conquest. As Rowan Atkinson reached later milestones in life, reflection replaced urgency. He never claimed to have conquered his doubts or erased his early struggles. Instead, he learned to live alongside them. His legacy is not one of overcoming vulnerability, but of adapting to it with intelligence and creativity. He transformed silence into communication, restraint into comedy, and self-doubt into precision. Beyond the characters, awards, and laughter, his journey speaks to a quieter truth: that success does not require becoming someone else, only learning how to work with who you are. Rowan remains thoughtful, selective, and grounded, choosing balance over excess. For audiences, he is timeless. For himself, he continues to evolve, proof that resilience is not loud and strength does not always announce itself.